Welcome to this World Cup preview. I'll be predicting some of the national team's chances in this tournament. Let's start with England. My assessment of this England team is going to be a quick one. For a more in-depth analysis, just go to my other England video which I did when they got humiliated by Iceland, because this is just going to be the same. Let's review the selected England players. In goal we have Jack Butland, garbage, Jordan Pickford, garbage, Nick Pope, garbage. They're all shit. In England's defence, we have Alexander-Arnold, garbage. Gary Cahill, one of the worst I've ever seen. Fabian Delph, garbage. Phil Jones, garbage. Harry Maguire, garbage. Danny Rose, garbage. John Stones, garbage and a fraud. Kieran Trippier, garbage. Kyle Walker, just a runner and garbage. Ashley Young, one of the worst players I've ever seen play for Manchester United. In midfield, we have Dele Alli, incredibly overrated. Eric Dyer, a meathead and is garbage. Jordan Henderson, a player still to this day has me wondering how he's even a Premier League player, let alone playing in a Champions League final. Jesse Lingard, he's average. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, a player that shows me why England shouldn't make it out the group stage. And now we move on to the forwards. Harry Kane, a good striker, though incredibly overrated. Let's just see how he plays when he doesn't have Eriksen supplying him goal-scoring chances. Marcus Rashford, in my opinion, is not good enough to play for Man United, and his only attribute is his pace. Raheem Sterling is one of the worst finishers that I've ever seen, though the number one spot goes to his teammate Danny Welbeck, a player that had me celebrating when Manchester United sold him. And finally, we have Jamie Vardy, one-dimensional. How far do I think England could go? Well, not very far. But let me just say this, because you won't hear this anywhere else on the mainstream media or on YouTube. I want England to fail for philosophical reasons. This obsession with heart and desire, pace and power actually makes me sick. I genuinely believe England should be banned from playing any international tournaments, and I can't wait for the day England gets kicked out just to see the media have a meltdown. And the final part, players to look out for. Well, for England's case, no one. I don't want to watch people with bad touches. The next national team I'll be assessing will be Spain. So let's go through the selected squad. In goal, we have David De Gea, Spain's number one. Saying that he's by far the best goalkeeper in the world is actually underplaying how good David De Gea really is. In fact, let me put it like this. I personally believe the players of David De Gea's generation, and what I mean by that are players that came onto the scene from 2010 and onwards, aren't actually better than the players of the last generation, basically players that made their debut in the late 90s, early 2000s, okay? But David De Gea is different. He's the only player from this generation that I believe when it's all said and done, we'll look back and say he's probably the best goalkeeper we've ever seen. His reflexing ability dwarfs that of Iker Casillas, and right now David De Gea is clearly a better goalkeeper than what Iker Casillas ever was. And I'm not violating Casillas. In his prime he was a world-class goalkeeper. The level David De Gea is at right now, I would compare him to Buffon in his prime. And I genuinely believe he can take it to a whole new level. Spain have Reina and the Atletico Madrid goalkeeper as cover, and those two are solid. Next up is Spain's defence. And whilst not the best in this tournament, it's still pretty good on paper, if you put it into the context of today's defending. However, they do have Sergio Ramos, right now the best centre-back in the world. This guy is an assassin. This guy will do anything it takes to win a game. What he did in the Champions League final, identifying Mo Salah as a threat and then goes on to deliberately break his shoulders, thereby taking away any small chance Liverpool had. He then goes on to his next victim, Karius, sees that he's Liverpool's biggest weakness, and then he strikes again, giving Karius a concussion. In my opinion, that was one of the best performances I've ever seen from a player. This man gives no fucks and is one of Spain's best assets. Moving on to the midfield, Spain just about has the best midfield in this competition. Sergio Busquets, Isco, Thiago, David Silva, Andre Iniesta, Koke, need I say more? And as for Spain's forward, they have Marco Asensio, who is a very promising talent and Diego Costa, aka Bad Milk, like Ramos, will do anything to win. The other Spanish forwards are, I don't really care about them. How far do I think they can go? For me, Spain are the favourites to win this competition, simply because on paper they have the best squad. They have in goal the best goalkeeper in the world in David De Gea. In defence, they have the best defender in the world in Sergio Ramos. They have the best collection of midfielders out of every team in this competition. And they have Diego Costa up front. And finally, players to watch for. Well, there's two that comes to mind. First one's Isco, mainly because I want to see if he's ready to take over Iniesta's role. And the second is Marco Asensio, a really talented young player, and you never know, he could have the performance like James Rodriguez had in 2014's World Cup. The next national team we'll be assessing is Germany, the current holders of the World Cup. In goal we have Manuel Neuer, the second best goalkeeper in the world, but he has been injured for the majority of last season, so whether he's fully fit or rather in good form is debatable. That saying, Germany has no option but to play him because their bench goalkeeper is ter Stegen, otherwise known as a rich man's Karius, is their backup. For a goalkeeper that plays for Barcelona, he is garbage, full of too many mistakes. In defence they have Jerome Boateng, who I believe is incredibly overrated, but compared to the rest of the trash defenders in this competition, he is one of the best. Also they have Matthias Ginter, Matt Hummels, who is world class, Joshua Kimmich, Antonio Rudiger. Collectively, they do have a solid defence, and on paper they could handle the big threats posed by Brazil and Spain. Now, Germany's midfield is clearly strong. Standouts are Julian Draxler, Gundogan, Sami Khedira, Toni Kroos and Mesut Ozil. Finally, we move on to the forward position where, in my opinion, is probably the strongest in this whole competition. They have Mario Gomez, Thomas Müller, who could get really close to being the all-time top goal scorer of the World Cup if he replicates what he did in the last two. But the way his form has been looking over the last 2 seasons, then I doubt he will. They also have Marco Reus, in my opinion Germany's second most important player, behind Mesut Ozil. And we finally get to see him feature in a World Cup. And lastly they have Timo Werner, who is a very talented striker. And finally, how far do I think they could go? While I don't think Germany will win the World Cup, that doesn't mean they can't. In fact, they are for me the second best team on paper, so I wouldn't argue with people who believe that they are the favourites. But if they are going to win it, they definitely need Ozil playing at his best, because this man can create chances at will. And unlike at Arsenal, he has deadly finishes on his national team. And finally, German players to watch out for. With the exception of Kroos, Reus and Ozil, the only player that I'm looking forward to watching is Timo Werner. This striker is looking like a very good talent, and he might go on to be one of the best. I definitely wouldn't mind Man United going after him. Next up is Brazil, the 5 times World Cup champions, a nation that has produced, in my opinion, some of the greatest players that has ever played the game. For example, Pelé, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Kaká, and many, many more. A nation that plays, in my opinion, the best style of football. Fast, skillful, cutthroat football. A superior style to that of Spain's tiki-taka. And then we assess this Brazilian team. Okay, let me start with the positives. Brazil's goalkeepers Alisson and Edison are actually good. And their defence is decent. Miranda is a solid defender. Danilo is also solid, nothing special. Marcelo is one of the best left backs in the world. Felipe Luis is a good backup to have. Marquinhos is very talented. And now we get to Thiago Silva. This man is a really good defender on his day. But in the last couple of years, those days haven't come quite often. This man's full of mistakes and, in my opinion, a coward. He deliberately got sent off against Colombia in the 2014's World Cup so he could avoid the ass fucking that Germany was always going to give them, even if Neymar was fit. In midfield, Brazil have Casemiro, Fernandinho and Paulinho, 3 players that epitomises where Brazil have fallen. Now I'm not saying that they're not good solid players, because they are, The problem is that that's really the kind of players that Brazil are only producing. In the last 8 years, they have gone down the same road that England is on, where they prioritise physicality and power over the more technical side of the game. Now, I get that they're defensive mids, and that's really the attributes that are required. But ask yourself, is Brazil producing the flary types of players or the hard-working types of players? I'd pick the latter, mainly because it's easier to coach. And that's why watching Brazil in the last couple of years hasn't been that enjoyable. They also have Fred, Philip Coutinho, Willian, Douglas Costa are all good players. However, compared to past Brazilian teams, when it's all said and done, I'm probably not going to remember these players. And it's the same in forwards position, with only one exception, Neymar. Clearly the third best player in the world, tied with David De Gea. However, though he is a really good talent even compared to the last generation of footballers, but he is a poor man's Ronaldinho, and let's keep it real, he wouldn't get into the starting lineup of the 2002 Brazilian team, and that's a fact. I believe Brazil will be kicked out by the semi-finals. Now, it's not impossible for them to win it, but if they want to stand a chance, Neymar will have to play the best football of his life, which is possible. But what is impossible is their defence not messing up. Again, Thiago Silva is suspect. And now we move on to Argentina. What can I say? Their goalkeepers are garbage, their defence is garbage apart from Mascherano and he's over the hill. Their midfield, nobody really stands out apart from Di Maria. Argentina do look good going forward. They have Messi, Dybala, Sergio Aguero. But there's a problem. The manager's taken Higuain, the man that's responsible for Messi not getting a World Cup or Copa America. The man's a bottle job. And why the manager took him over Icardi still baffles me to this day. Argentina's going to go as far as the quarterfinals. They blew their chance in 2014. Or should I say Higuain did. The only player I'm looking forward to watching is Dybala. That's it really. Next up is Belgium. Honestly, I'm not going to bother going through the whole team. They're good players, but most of them are extremely overrated. Thibaut Courtois is good, but he's not good enough to clean De Gea's boots. Their defence on paper is kinda good. Their midfield is kinda good. Standout is De Bruyne, and Belgium do need him to play well if they want to progress. But he's also overhyped too. Some idiots are comparing him to Michael Ballack. In my opinion, Kevin De Bruyne is a rich man's James Milner. He's still good, but if this was FIFA, I'd give him a rating of 86. The only player that's not overrated on Belgium is Hazard. Clearly Belgium's best player. As for their forwards, well, if Lukaku's leading the lines, then their time in this tournament will be a short one. The man's consistently missing clear goal-scoring chances. I'm still fuming Man United bought him in the first place. And finally we have France. I'm not so sure about this team. They're definitely underdogs, but I don't know if they have the minerals to win this World Cup. Hugo Lloris is a solid goalkeeper, although he has flaws. In the defence, they have Umtiti and Varane, solid, really good defenders. They have Mendy, that's a good fullback. In their midfield, they have Kante, Matuidi, Paul Pogba, and Tolisso. Now, if Paul Pogba plays to his best, then France has a serious chance of winning. He's dominant, skillful, and a highly technical player. So if he's more consistent, then you never know what they can do. Looking at the forwards for France, they've got Dembele, Fekir, Giroud, Griezmann, Thomas Lemar, Mbappe. That's actually overpowered. But the problem is that not all of them are going to play at the same time. So who the manager picks is going to be really important. So whether he's going to go for a Giroud, Griezmann partnership or Griezmann, Mbappe partnership will probably decide how far they go. I think Giroud and Griezmann is more of a balanced partnership. But, I'm not the manager. Also, why wasn't Martial taken? That's a big L in my eyes. France may make the semi-finals. I'm not sure about that. I just don't think they have the minerals to win this World Cup. But this French team does look exciting. I want to see how Paul Pogba plays. I'm kind of hoping he steps up. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment and subscribe. Thanks.